Close armoured support for infantry was one of the reasons why the German army was so successful during the Second World War. One series of vehicles was particularly effective and feared amongst Allied armoured units. The assault gun, or Sturmgeschutz in German, was perfectly designed for this role. In service from the start of the war to the end, its ability to knock out enemy armour and strongpoints gave the Germans an upper hand. It was so successful it would continue service right into the late 1960s during the Six-Day War. In today's video, we look at the StuG, the tank killer of World War II. If you enjoy this video and want to see more, hit the subscribe button. It's free and really helps the channel reach more history lovers like you. Despite images of tanks, half-tracks and other fighting vehicles being used throughout the German army, many weapons such as heavy artillery were pulled by horses for the majority of the war. Because of this, guns over the 50mm equipped to the Panzer IIIs took time to place and set up for firing. All along the Eastern Front in particular, the Germans found out their 50mm guns were no match for the armour of the Russian T-34 tanks. They needed something bigger. In steps the StuG. The early versions would sport a short 75mm cannon as their main armament. This was very effective at short ranges, with accuracy dropping off after 1.5 kilometers. The StuG 3s utilised the chassis of a Panzer III. The main difference, apart from the main gun, was the lack of turret. This was both good and bad for the StuG crews. No turret meant a very low profile, which made the vehicle easy to conceal and hard for enemy to hit. Equally, no turret meant the tank couldn't traverse. The whole vehicle would need to move to engage targets, at either side or behind. But infantry fighting alongside the StuGs loved them. They could easily engage and destroy targets such as pillboxes, machine gun nests, and troops fortifying themselves in buildings. This gave the German soldiers a fighting chance, with the StuG drawing fire away from the men on foot. The StuG crews consisted of 4 men. Without a turret, the quarters were quite cramped, but the armour was sufficient enough to protect the men inside. 50mm thick in the later models could stop most enemy rounds. What was realised though, that the short barrel was insufficient to tackle some Russian tanks. Thus the longer barreled version was created. Now StuG crews took more of a tank killer role rather than infantry support. Some 11,500 StuG 3s would be built during the war, but following the Allied bombing campaign over Germany, a crucial factory for StuG and Panzer III manufacturing was destroyed. This forced the creation of the StuG 4, which utilised the chassis of a Panzer IV. It was much the same design as the 3, but slightly roomier inside. Nonetheless, various versions of the 3 and 4 were created, some with MG34 or MG42s mounted on the top or even within the structure itself. An issue often identified by crews was the lack of room for ammunition inside. With 4 men in such a tight space, the vehicle could only carry about 54 rounds. The other big issue was the small fuel tank. StuG crews would sometimes need to leave mid-battle and return to friendly lines to refuel and rearm. Allied tankers who happened across a ditched StuG were always tempted to restore them and put them into action against the Germans. The sheer power of the 75mm gun was too much to pass up, and there are many accounts of Russians using them. In the range of 20,000 enemy tanks were said to have been destroyed by the StuG during the war. They would see use in all theatres, including North Africa, Italy, Eastern and Western Europe. In Italy in particular, German crews used the mountainous terrain to their advantage, and knocked out many Allied vehicles. So overall, the Sturmgeschutz, like many tanks of the era, had its flaws, but these were arguably outweighed by how well they worked in combat. The StuGs have taken an almost cult status with World War II enthusiasts and historians alike. Do you think production of more StuGs could have helped Germany during the war? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section down below. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you want to expand your knowledge and join the growing Premier History community.